Welcome to the Beyond Thursdays podcast right here with young adults. Today we have with us Trent and Debbie, and they're going to share with us a little bit about their lives and journey and what got you here today. So, first thing we're going to ask is tell us about your life before Christ and how you ended up giving your life to Jesus. And you guys can each answer that.
You want to go first?
I grew up in church, and it was a regular thing, but I guess as soon as they could stop physically taking me to church, my parents, I stopped going. And a big part of that was probably hearing, I just remember a pastor saying, if you think about something, then you've already might as well done it. And I kind of took the sin to the shame. I didn't know how to process it. And I kind of was like, well, I'm going to hell already. And so I just kind of took it from there. I stopped going, and I did fall into so good 8 years of alcohol and drug abuse, which escalated, progressed into hard drugs, and tried to get sober a couple of times, and had some failures, had some progress and some understanding, and then moving to San Angelo, I got sober. Only a couple of months sober when I met Debbie, and I wasn't saved yet. It was in the process of our relationship together that I started coming back, and it was this church. It was coming to Celebration that sold me. I don't know if what I heard when I was a child was just a misunderstanding on my part, but I just know that I loved the truth and the message that I was hearing here, and I dedicated my life September 14th of 2021.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. So almost 2 years or 3 years. What is that? No. I'm bad at math. Almost 2 years.
Almost
Yeah.
2, yep.
1.5 years.
1.5. I'm fresh.
1.5. That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
But you've made the decisions that got you here today. You've decided to get plugged in. You decided to get plugged in on the worship team in the college, and we'll get to all of that. But I think that's super awesome that it's been such a short time, and you're already such a role model for so many of the guys in young adults and at Celebration College and at the church. And now I want to hear from Debbie a little bit on your story.
Yeah. I don't really remember a time when I wasn't familiar with God. Like, I was always, growing up, we went to church. I was familiar. But I guess the whole relationship with God, I feel like I didn't really understand that. To me, it just felt like very much so religion, I guess, rule-based.
Yeah.
I didn't really see an example I wouldn't say I saw an example in my house of what it looked like to walk in a relationship with God. And so I remember, to me, it was kind of like, oh, you just do the right thing. When you're a Christian, you just do the right thing, and that's what it's all about. And then I remember in high school, I would get kind of confused because people who weren't saying that they follow God could also do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's the difference between if you follow God and if you don't follow God? To me, almost it sometimes seemed like even people who don't follow God were happier. And so I remember that confused me a lot. So then I came here to go to college, to go to ASU, and I didn't really have people telling me to do the right thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I got into drinking a lot. I did drugs a lot too. How do I word this? I don't know. I just wasn't pure anymore. I just fell into the world, and it was fun. I mean, I was like, okay. I didn't really feel that convicted about it, but then I met some friends who who just kept telling me, "Oh, why don't you come to church with us?" Like, and they knew what I was doing. They knew my lifestyle, but they didn't judge me. They weren't even condemning about it. They just be like, "Oh, that's okay. Like, come next time. We'll be there if you want to come." And I remember thinking like, "Wow, that's different. I wonder what they got going on over there."
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
so I went with them. And then they invited me to come to their small group, and so I came to their small group. That would have been about probably right before COVID, maybe a year before COVID is the timeline. And about that time, maybe a little bit after that, is when I met Trent. So I don't really have a certain day where I would say like I rededicated my life. I feel like it was more of like a gradual thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a lot better. Yeah.
And I would say it's Debbie's the one that remembers that date for me. I probably wouldn't have known because I remember that night. That was a YA night, or not YA night, so it was a Thursday.
Like a
night.
young adults, yeah.
And I told her on the way home, and I think it's impactful for her to have remembered that. I think they were.
That's awesome.
Her and her friends were praying really hard for me to come back.
Yeah, that's really good. And now I want to talk about y'all's relationship, and y'all's marriage and everything, and about how your walk with God affected your relationship and before and after y'all's marriage. And so whoever wants to kind of talk about that.
Where do I start? Okay, so I guess whenever I had joined those friends in their small group, it was just a small, like it was them, their family. I would just come because they invited me. We were already dating at the time, but were we living together already?
Not yet, I don't think.
So we started dating May 14th, 2019, and we started living together like right when COVID started.
March
so it was
2020.
March 2020. So we had been dating for a year, and then we started living together. And I remember it would come up a lot in that small group because it was hard. Like we were living a marriage lifestyle, but we didn't have the commitment behind it. And so that just, a lot of issues would come up with that. So we would just pray, and they were just always there with me, but man.
I was not there. So during her walk with God, that was, I guess, getting fresh. I wasn't there yet. And I'd been invited, and Debbie's asked me to go, and I had my recovery community, the people that helped me get sober, and being there for people coming in not knowing where to start with their sobriety. And I was involved with that. It was an everyday thing. I went to a 12-step meeting every day my first year of sobriety without ever coming to church. And whenever the conversations between us about God would come up, they wouldn't end well because I believed in God at this time now. I believed, and I guess I've always believed in God, but like a relationship, me and God type of deal, started to form with my recovery. But as far as Jesus Christ, and my mom has always never stopped saying, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And those conversations went the same way as it did with Debbie. It was like, I'm not gonna say that that Jesus isn't who Jesus is, because if I said that he's not, then I'd be closed-minded, and that would contradict my recovery. As soon as I start thinking I know something, I'm in trouble. And so that I use that to kind of say, you might be right, but if I don't want to be wrong, is like the idea. And that kept us separated on a spiritual level for a bit.
Yeah.
How did that feel for you, Debbie, like being on different like levels? Was that something like you were thinking about often, or at the time you were just getting back into church and small group and everything? Was it not a big deal for you at that point? Like, how were you feeling in that time?
I think sometimes it would be really hard, but then sometimes I guess still because it was so fresh, I was just, and like the people that I would hang out with, it was still normal to be living that way, I
Yeah.
guess. And so I didn't really think much of it at the beginning. And then as we progressed, as we went farther along, I remember like even when I started coming here to Celebration Church, I would feel convicted about it, but I was like, but it's like, what do I do now at this point? It's already, we're doing this, you know? And so it was almost like my relationship with God came to a standstill because he was telling me, he was convicting me, you know, telling me this is wrong, you're not living correct. But I was disobeying. I was hearing him and disobeying. And so it was like, well, if you're not going to listen to me in this area, I'm like, how do we move forward, you know? And so that's when it started getting even harder.
And so when you did start coming to church and when you did take that step, what happened after that? Like, did you guys start talking about it openly, like within your relationship about where you guys were at spiritually?
Her and her friends and small group, I was, I guess, the topic of a prayer request, for a while. And it's funny, some people in my recovery community, Chris Hopper, I'll holler at him real quick, he wouldn't stop bugging me about it for a little bit. Every time I saw him, hey, you should come to Celebration Church and check it out. And I'm still in the same mindset that I was giving her and my mom, like, I don't need church. And but it did get to a point where it was frustrating her. I could see it. And at some point, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And so I was like, I'll go to church, but I want to go to Celebration Church. I think Debbie was kind of mainly going to another church at this time. But she was all for it because they really wanted me to go to church.
Yeah.
She really wanted me to go to church. And so we came, and was it a Thursday or a Sunday?
That one was a Sunday.
Okay.
We came on a Sunday, and then we didn't come back again after that for a while.
I saw a lot of people there that I knew, though, in my recovery, and that was really hopeful. I was really hopeful. I remember coming the first time, and I didn't walk away with any confirmation of any of my thoughts or prejudices or biases that I had before I walked in. When I walked out, all those were gone. And
Wow.
I still had... I still walked out thinking I still really like going to my recovery community, but it broke down a lot of walls right there just coming in that first time.
Yeah. And we were trying to talk about it. We were like, why did we not come back? We couldn't really even remember why we didn't, but we just didn't come back for a while.
I was working nights and working long hours sometimes, 24-hour facility. It doesn't close, and so if we're short-staffed, nobody's there to get you. You're working 16 hours. And that was I used that excuse for a lot of things at the time, a lot of things. And so I'm sure that was one of them as well. Yeah.
And so I kept going to the other church that I had been going to after that. But then the same person that had recommended him to come here the first time on Sunday, I guess kept talking to you, kept telling you to come back. I also had a coworker that mentioned young adults to me.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, we've been there before. We went there once. I liked it. And she mentioned young adults. I guess when y'all started after COVID.
Yes.
Again,
Yeah.
she was all hyped up. She was like, young adults is about to start again. So I was like, all right, well, let me check it out. She added me to y'all's Facebook page. And so I was like,
Nice.
okay. So then we started coming again, or I started coming to young adults.
When we were across the hall, or were we over here?
When
we were across
over
the
there.
hall. Okay.
Yep. And so I was coming to young adults on Thursday and then still going to the other church on Sundays. But I just kept saying that he should come. And eventually he did. He came while we were still over there too.
Yeah, and I was doing, for my own self-preservation, I was doing pop-in, pop-outs.
Yeah.
We came in separate vehicles. I came later or maybe at the same time, but then I would leave as soon as I wanted to. And I did that at the other church once when I showed up there. Just to, because for me still, it was still more for her than it was about my relationship with Jesus. She wanted me to go, so I'd go, but then I'd be like, okay, I'm leaving. But I remember it was that September 14th. I don't know if that, I haven't looked to see if that is it is a Thursday, but I'm sure it was, because it was over there across the hall, and it was one of Pastor Keenan's messages, and I was just burning,
Yeah.
and I was just overwhelming joy is all I can remember.
Yeah.
So would you say that's when things changed and kind of what got you guys to where you are today? Because that's kind of what I'm curious about, is like you guys were kind of like here and there, touch and go, and now you're like here every time the doors are open. So like, how do we get from there to here?
At that point, my prayer life started to change. I really wanted to come to Thursday nights now. That was new. And I'm not quite aware of just when that type of transition happened.
Yeah.
But I was ready to drop whatever commitment I had on Thursday and make YA a new thing. But with my job, that was difficult. At this point, I was now working days, and I'd work 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. sometimes.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was, I had my own spiritual leaders, and I remember for weeks I talked to somebody on a regular basis, and I was talking about I want to actually get to have a life besides work, and,
Yeah.
I prayed about it, and I stayed consistent with it, and ended up with a supervisor position that gave me more leeway. I put in a religious accommodation so they couldn't hold me over on Thursdays.
Nice.
But that was only necessary for like 2 weeks, because 2 weeks into this supervisor position, I was still like shadowing for this job, and I got another job promotion into an instructor position, and so 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Nice.
And I was like, I can come. I can do everything.
Yeah.
Freed up a lot of time.
Yeah, I did.
And which is great, because I mean now we're here like 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Most weeks. So, what changed? I needed to be present first, and that was a progression for both of us in relationship wise too.
Yeah.
And there are like 3 more steps up in the relationship that God was trying to get us to. One, probably me, proclaiming Jesus again. But I think the next thing was that we were living together. I remember telling people that I was going to marry her, and a year went by before I actually proposed. And that was we're right in the middle of this time with me getting this job position change and coming to YA. And I let the thought go. I got back into kind of motions, and it was pretty tough for her. We had been living together for a year and a half. And it hadn't been my conviction yet that this is what the issue was. At some point, living together, we separated for
a week. We broke up for a week.
Wow.
I had gotten so frustrated, and I didn't know how to continue anymore. And I didn't know how to bring God into it, because I was like, well, we already, like, I don't know. I just didn't see how that was working out. And I turned back to the world, and I did some things that I'm not proud of. And we ended up breaking up for a week, still living together. So he just moved to the second bedroom.
Wow. And were y'all engaged at that point, or no? This is before?
This is before. And so after that week, I had gone camping with some friends, and I guess his car broke or something. He was stuck at the house. He couldn't leave the house. And so he said he just had a lot of time to think at the house. And So I came back and we talked through those things. And then it kind of got to this point where it was like either we just part ways and we never see each other again, or we get married. Like there were only two options. We couldn't continue this halfway.
I spent this was August 5th of 2020. 2021 or 2020?
2021.
2021. Man, August 5th, I spent all day calling my my sponsor, my spiritual leader, and I was at I wasn't able to emotionally process. Like I had basically been cool being in a husband type of role.
Yeah.
And took it for granted. And after the brief separation, I felt like my world was falling apart, you know, and what was in jeopardy, and it's all my inability to process or accept, but my relationship that I had just gotten with God, my sobriety was in jeopardy. I was about to do the same thing and turn back to the world in response.
Yeah.
And that's life or death. That's life or death for me. So it got to a conclusion because I had all these things I wanted to do, and I ended up with two options. And one was to like walk away and never look back at any of it. I came to San Angelo just for my sobriety. I would have left everything that was here in another chapter of my past.
Yeah.
And I knew that wasn't an option. So there was like one option, you know, it's and I was convicted by my sponsor too. You are not living the way God wants you to, and you have invited him into your life to become who you're called to be, and it's just not going to mix. You know?
Wow.
So August 5th, that day, she was at work, and I went to Kay's, got a ring, and when she got home, we had a serious discussion.
I mean, because he literally found out that same morning about what I had turned to another guy and and took that too far, and he found out that morning.
Wow.
And we got off the phone and he went to Kay's and got a ring.
Wow.
And said, okay, I guess we're doing this. I mean,
yeah
it's just that was
she was started to talk and see somebody else, and
you're like, nope.
Yeah, I just couldn't have it. I couldn't have it. I knew I was supposed to do that a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was supposed to have taken that step a long time ago. And so we thought, and because we kind of talked about it too, and like those issues went away at first. And we stayed engaged. So we had a set date. From August 5th, 2021, we had a set date, October 22nd, 2022. 14 months, still living together, but engaged. And in my head, and I think in her head too, we kind of were like, okay, we're engaged.
It's close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a date. Yeah.
And we still had people in our life saying, why don't y'all get married already? Y'all are living together.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
And I think I got conviction out of Celebration Church. We had worship team tryouts, and the relationships I started to build in here, I was being called into more.
Definitely.
And I remember Pastor Mauricio, and man, bless his heart, the type of call he had to make. He called me, and it was basically saying, like, we can't put you in any kind of leadership position if you're living with Debbie.
Yeah.
And my automatic, which I didn't respond automatically, but my immediate feeling, which I feel I would understand if anybody else felt that way, is, forget you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forget celebration.
Yeah,
church.
That's your first response. It'd be my first response too.
It's like, you can't tell me how to live my life. Man, he had prayed and he had sought counsel, and I don't know how I didn't respond that way, but is again another life-saving moment. I asked him to show me, like, in the scriptures, and he called me back and he gave me some things to look at. And Debbie and I sat down and we looked through them. And I know, to me, I wanted to make sure that she made that decision, that she wanted to invite that decision in. And so she said, well, then let's just get married.
Yeah.
And that was a Tuesday evening. Wednesday morning, we went to the courthouse and got the license. Saturday, we got married.
Yeah.
And that was November 20th, 2021.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's our real marriage date.
Yeah.
And we were having these, besides all the people telling us that we need to do it, we were experiencing issues that didn't make sense. We were having problems that we could not put our fingers on, and the enemy just had control in the house. We were just we weren't doing things the way God designed.
Yeah.
And once we were both convicted about that, we were able to eradicate it as soon as possible. And it's been great from there, because being married, we get to be in the marriage small group.
Yeah.
And Mike and Lisa are superheroes.
For real.
We've gotten to do a lot of walking with them and the marriage retreat, and we're learning how to do this because we jumped in together when COVID came, and we didn't look at it clearly. We looked at it as the world looks at it.
Yeah. I remember that because, being here, being on staff, like, there's only like 5 or 6 of us on staff. And I remember Pastor Keenan and Pastor Mauricio said, like, Trent and Debbie are just going to get married, like, because of all of this and because of what the Bible says. And we were all just so shocked, because it was like, that's just so rare that it's like, and we were talking about it again today, me and Pastor Keenan, just about how it's like, okay, well, if that's what it says, we're just going to do it then. Like, right now, let's just take care of it. And we were just like, man, that's the kind, and I know that and I knew in the moment, and I knew today, and before hearing all of this, that wasn't just like, oh, we just learned about this and all of a sudden we're going to take care of it. But from the decision of, like, that conversation was had, he showed you where it was at in the Bible. Y'all talked about it. Y'all were like, okay, let's just do it. We were just like, so many people, make those excuses. And we hear it, all the time. And it's like, and we have to talk through these things with people. We have to have those conversations all the time. It's like, well, we're going to get married. And you're like, okay. Well, the Bible doesn't say it's okay if you want to be married, like, and that's not the only place where we have to draw those lines. There's like lines all across the Bible in which we have to draw, but that one, it really does seem to be the most blurred of the lines, because it's like, well, we are living everything else together. We are doing all of these other things that are right in the Bible, but this one thing, that's for us, but we just want to live together. It's easier. We already live together, and it would have been easier for you to just say, okay, fine then, whatever. Like, I'm not going to be on the worship team, whatever. We're just going to be here. We'll try this again later if I come back, But, and all of these things, it would have been easier for you to say, for both of you to say, like, I'm done with this. I'm going to turn around, and it would have been hard on you emotionally because clearly you guys love each other so much. But in the moment, it would be easier. In the moment, it'd be easier for you to just be like, forget about San Angelo. But you knew what was going to pay off. And that's the things, like the hard things, they pay off. And I'm sure like making that decision, and the reason y'all hadn't got married, I'm sure marriage was scary, you know, and like making that commitment, that's scary. I'm sure. I am not married, but I am sure, I've heard it's scary. And that is huge. And I just want to say, like, choosing to do the hard thing, that's what creates these available moments for you to grab onto. You know, that's what creates this path for you, as far as like, if you wouldn't have chosen that, you wouldn't have chosen Celebration College. You know, you wouldn't have chosen to, you know, be on the be a small group leader and all of these things. You guys wouldn't have chosen to go to these small groups that put you in these places. You know, it's like, and that's what, those moments, those decisions are what build this whole life. You know, that's what gets you from coming every other week or whatever to here every day, you know, every opportunity. What was that like for you, Debbie? I mean, like hearing that from him finally, you know, at this point, and then just being like, all right, let's do it.
I mean, it was a big decision, but it was like the most clear thing. It was like, it makes sense. Like, this is what we have to do.
She said about time.
About time, yeah. I mean, she's been feeling this conviction for a lot longer, you know? I can't imagine the kind of pressure you had put within yourself for this moment, for him to get to this place
and
with you.
It's almost kind of hard to think that I had this conviction, but I wasn't acting on it. If I let myself, I can find myself getting into shame about it, of like, well, why did I just let it go on so long? But, I mean, it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is like some people will, you know, have a conviction like that for a long time, you know that they need to get sober for a long time and not take that step. Know they need to get back into church for a long time and never take that step. Know that they need to have a strong commitment like marriage in their relationship for a long time and never make that step. I think we just be proud of ourselves for making those steps, you know, and not focus on the time where we didn't make those steps, you know, and just be like, I've made this step here, I've made this decision here, and this is where we're going. You know, that stuff doesn't matter. You know, that stuff got me to here, you know? It's like, maybe, you know, you ignored that conviction before, and then it takes you another year, you know, in that conviction. But, like, you didn't ignore it. You knew it was there. You were present-minded about it. It's not like you were just sloughing it off, you know? You were thinking about it. You were praying about it. You were bringing it to your small group. Like, I think there's no shame in that at all. And don't let yourself be shamed about that.
It's easy to turn down the Holy Spirit and sniff it out.
Absolutely.
I had a conviction a year prior about marrying her. Strong enough for me to share it with my friends, you know, and I can't even tell you what happened, but I just let it go.
Yeah.
And it should have happened then. It should have happened. It should have happened then, but God still, you know, he doesn't put us on a straight path.
Yeah, absolutely.
He takes our path and makes it straight.
And then with all those issues that we were having, it just made the decision that much more clear. Like, this is just the decision. I didn't have a doubt about it once we got to that point, because all these issues we've been having. I was like, I mean, how can God bless a relationship that's not living in his design?
Absolutely.
Everything about us was selfish. And the only thing that turned it from selfish to selfless was a covenant, as God designed it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then, like, being able to then prioritize your marriage and put yourselves into marriage groups. And, I mean, Pastor Brandon and Pastor Keenan, when they are doing weddings, and I'm at a lot of weddings, you know, as a wedding photographer, and I hear this, it's like, and only in a marriage covenant can you pray for your spouse as yourself, you know, and only in that place can you do that. So not only are you putting yourselves in that position to where now you can pray on behalf of each other fully, but you're also able to go to these things like, you know, marriage group and marriage retreat and, you know, marriage, you can take marriage classes and all of these things where it's like, now this is it. This is real. We're married, you know, we're in this thing. And I mean, I know that was when all of us saw you guys here all the time after that. You know, it was like you guys got married. Because I remember when you guys were engaged, it was like, this is Trent and Debbie. But after you guys were married, it was like, you guys were just completely bought in, you know, completely here and serving and being part of the ministry and being people, you know, a couple that we can count on, you know, to be prayer partners and to be involved and to show up and be here. Because, you know, a lot of people, especially in young adults, they don't like to show up. You know, they like to say they're going to show up and then they don't show up. And here and there, it's like Trent and Debbie are going to be there, you know? And I think like that God is just, at least through you, blessed you guys so much because of that commitment and because of that step y'all took.
Yeah.
And so kind of where we want to take this thing now and kind of wind down is, where do you feel God is leading you guys right now?
Yeah. When I read this question, I just immediately thought about my words for the year. I was praying a lot about, like, I'd always heard that people will have like a word for their year. I felt like the Lord gave me free and focused 2 words. And I remember when I was thinking about those words, I was like, how can those even exist together? Like, either I'm so free that I am just all like doing all kinds of things, or I'm focused and I'm bound and I'm just slave to what I'm focused on. And so I was like, free and focused. Okay. So I've honestly found that this applies to so many different areas of just living a life with Christ, like free from, what's one of them? Free from my own motives, focused on God's motives.
Yeah,
like,
that's
and
good.
so things like that will come up over and over again. And
That's
so I
really
feel like
good.
that has been a big thing for me. Free from comparison, focused on my lane.
Yeah, that's
you
good.
know, stuff like that. And so that's been a big thing for me right
That's
now.
really good.
I thought that was a pretty tough question. We did an 8-hour solo thing this past Saturday. She stayed in the house and I stayed in the front yard for 8 hours.
Wow.
And read through that Living Fearless by Jamie Winship.
Wow.
For that identity. And I think that and some of the names that I got really psyched me out a little bit, to where there's just a shift going on, like real time right now. And I feel like it stepped me into an unknown. It's kind of scary. I'm not really like in the most comfortable place with it right now, if I'm being honest, but that is definitely going to be involved in the next steps. But from here, I mean, I want to continue to pour into anyone who comes for it. We have a small group on Sunday nights, and those people are awesome. They're awesome.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that small group and kind of what you guys, you know, were thinking when you were asked to lead a small group, and kind of like how y'all got to that place, like being excited to have a small group.
I was way more logistic than she was. I was like, a co-ed small group? I was like, if you asked me the reason why there's a women and a men's, all the reasons that you would say would be justified.
Yeah.
So why would we have a co-ed small group? And I've been proven wrong. Not that I had a point against it. I just wasn't sure why. But with us together, that it actually has been a real space. We have some couples, and we have some single guys, and we have some single girls. It's this mix.
Yeah.
And one of those couples is getting married in 90 days from now?
In June.
Wow.
90 days yesterday from now. And then, you know, college students. It's interesting. And it's blessed us.
Yeah.
It's allowed us to be a blessing in just another one of these all these channels where God wants us to be present and to allow Him to work. But we're all for it now. I understand it now.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was so nervous about it at first, but I was really honored when Keenan asked us if we wanted to lead this space. And also, I mean, I heard the women's small groups are just packed. So
Yeah, they are.
A little overflow.
Oh, and a lot of y'all's girls go to both. They're like, oh yeah, we like the Wednesday night women's group, so we can also go to co-ed group on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so it's like they like to go to both small groups, which I think that's just so cool that we have people in our community that are like, how many nights a week can I go to small group? Okay, I'll be
Yeah.
there. You know,
Yes.
which is just super cool. I know that a lot of people were really excited for the concept of a co-ed group because it's like, wow, yes, like men and women need their space. We're all just people, you know, and a lot of my friends are guys, and it's like we go through the same sort of things, you know, and you just can't always put a gender on that, you know. And so I think that's great that people have a space for that.
A revelation that I got was if another couple just like us, and they're college kids too, it's like you might have a guy or a girl out here who wants to be involved in a small group, but they don't, maybe because they have a significant other that doesn't, or that they would rather spend time with. We've seen a couple of them that they probably wouldn't be in a small group if they couldn't be in a small group together.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we would totally have been in a co-ed small group
Yeah.
if that was available when we came.
Yeah, well, it's like easier to go to something like that when you have like a comfort person there.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to go to a small group and be the only one there. I know I tried small groups when I was in college, and I made my best friend go with me. I'm like, we're going to these small groups together because I'm not going into this random dorm room by myself.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you don't have a friend to go with you, you're like, man, I can't bring my husband or my boyfriend with me. Like, this is lame. So I bet like having that comfort person there to go to small group and then be able to be like, okay, now I'm going to talk to the girls, but you're right there, you know? Or like, now I'm going to talk to the guys, but I can still see you. We're still comfortable. I bet that really helps.
And on the other
Yeah.
side of the coin, if anybody is in that boat, Debbie did not hold back just because I wasn't willing to
Yeah.
go. She still went to church, and she still went to small groups while I sometimes stayed home.
Yeah. We've said, just, you know, you watch things. Keenan and I have been in young adult ministry for, I think it's like 7 years now. We've been running the young adults 6 or 7 years, and we've seen that like when people show up to either small group or serve team by themselves, they're more likely to get like super committed because they're like, I'm here not because someone brought me, but I'm here to be here and I'm here to get something out of this, you know? Or it's like sometimes when people come as friends and like one person gets busy, you know, they're in nursing, you know, they're always busy in nursing. They're in nursing, so they're busy, so they're not coming. And the other friend's like, well, I'm not going to come. If that other friend is like stays, then they're so committed, you know, because it's like, I'm not here because someone made me come or because I'm here with my person. Like, I'm here to get what I need and for my relationship with God. And if someone out there is questioning whether or not to go to small group or serve team or church by themselves, like, just go. It's about you and God, you know, and you will find your people. I promise.
Yeah.
He'll use them however he can get 'em.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you guys for coming on here and being so vulnerable and sharing, you know, that part of yourself with our community. And, you know, we love you guys a lot. Our staff and our young adult leadership, like, we just brag on y'all all the time. And y'all aren't even on Instagram, so you don't ever get to see the cute pictures of y'all that we post, but we genuinely do love you guys, and we're super thankful for y'all and all of the steps that got you here, you know, and all of the things that y'all have said yes to. So I just want to say thank you for saying yes to this and for being so vulnerable and for being yourselves here, and hopefully we can help some people or entertain them for a bit.
Well,
If
we love
nothing
y'all
else.
too. We've found an amazing community here like we've never found anywhere else. So we love y'all too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Life changing.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I just want to say, check out the rest of our podcasts right here on the YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you're at, or come visit us on Thursday nights at 7:30. If you're in San Angelo, Texas, come hang out or watch live if you're not, because we are live. So we'll see you guys later. Thank you.